It is 1 a.m. in Washington, 8 in Kiev, and 2 on a Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. These are what's making headlines at this hour. President Park Geun-hye apologizes over government's initial response to the Sewol-ho ferry accident. North Korea informs South Korea that it will conduct firing drills near the de facto maritime border between the two Koreas. And Korea's current account surplus hit a 5-month high in March as exports of tech products, cars, and chips gained ground. The entire nation continues to grieve for the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. On this Tuesday, a large memorial altar opened at a park in Ansan, which is, of course, the city most affected by this terrible tragedy. Now, tens of thousands of people have paid respects to those that lost their lives on this ill-fated ferry over recent days. We now connect live to our Chi Myung-gil, who is standing by at Ansan Hwarang Memorial Hall. Myung-gil.
Good afternoon, Kon-young. This new memorial altar opened earlier this morning, and people have been streaming in ever since to say their last goodbyes. As you can see behind me, there is a long line of people still waiting to get inside. In the morning, President Park Geun-hye visited the memorial altar and paid tribute to the Sewol-ho ferry victims. She also spoke with the relatives of victims. This altar replaces a temporary one that was set up last week at Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall. This particular location, the Ansan Hwarang Memorial Hall, is 6 times larger. The altar displays portraits of the victims, including the 152 students and 4 teachers from Ansan's Tanon High School, who are either missing or dead. Over the past 6 days, some 180,000 people have visited the altars in the city.
And this more permanent altar, like the temporary one before it is open to the general public, correct?
Yes, that's right. The new Memorial Hall will be open 24 hours a day for anyone who wishes to come and pay their respects to the victims. The new Memorial Hall is run by the government and is jointly sponsored by the Ansan City and the Gyeonggi-do Province. Various government officials, such as the governor of the province, paid a visit to the hall earlier today, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will arrive in about an hour. To handle the volume of people coming here, more than 30 shuttle buses will be used to help people get to and from nearby subway stations. There's also a huge parking lot with room for nearly 3,000 cars right next to the altar. People who can't make it here can instead send text messages or personal letters commemorating the victims. The messages are posted up on a bulletin board so they can be read by mourners paying their respects here. This was Chi Myung-gil reporting live from Ansan Hwarang Memorial Altar.
Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye has apologized to the nation for the Sewol-ho ferry accident, more specifically, the government's poor initial response to the tragedy. At a cabinet meeting Tuesday, the president said she regrets not having rooted out long-standing problems in society that contributed to the deadly accident. She then vowed to make right social irregularities to regain public trust and make Korea a safe place to live. President Park said a national safety ministry will be created under the Prime Minister's office to efficiently manage natural and man-made disasters. The Korean leader also called on the cabinet to begin thinking of ways to revamp Korea's safety system and come up with appropriate measures. Now, the country still remains in a deep state of shock and sorrow over the ferry disaster, with 193 people now confirmed dead and 109 others missing and presumed dead. Let's connect live with our Shin Se-min at the News Center for the latest. Se-min, the weather hasn't been favorable for the search and rescue teams in recent days. How has this affected operations today?
Yes, Kon-young, the weather conditions have improved, but under the water, it's a totally different story. Fast currents and strong tides are creating problems for divers, so much so that many many are being held back out of concerns they may even be putting their own lives at risk. Currently, the official death toll stands at 193, with 4 more bodies being discovered during an early morning search operation at around 2 a.m. Korea time. The bodies have not yet been identified, but are believed to be male students from Tanwon High School. Now, going back to the conditions down at the site, the rain clouds are clearing out, which should help the search crews, but the sea conditions will still worsen, with currents forecast to reach speeds of up to 2.4 meters per second. And in terms of the search operation, a diving bell is expected to be deployed this afternoon, and if that attempt is a success, it'll mark it first. A diving bell was set to be deployed last Saturday, but strong currents made it difficult for the equipment to be utilized, forcing emergency crews to pull it back out. If and when the diving bell is set properly, it will allow divers to continue their underwater search for up to 20 consecutive hours. And so far, only 1/3 of the Sewol-ho ferry's 111 cabins have been searched. The divers are mainly focused on searching the 4th floor and the left side of the vessel, where most of the missing passengers are believed to be, as the ferry listed to the left as it sank.
Now, Semin, new video footage of the early stages of the sinking have been released, and quite shocking, I would say. Tell us more about that.
Yes, Kanyang, the video released by the Maritime Police shows the first crucial moments of the rescue efforts, and it shows a captain and some of the crew being among the first to get off the sinking ferry. Now, the central focus of the footage is a period between 9:43 a.m. and 9:49 a.m. This footage clearly shows that Captain Lee Jun-seok and his crew leaving the ferry without attending to passengers. And it's difficult to distinguish him as a captain, as Lee jumps into the rescue boat in his boxer shorts without his uniform on. And by 9:35 a.m., all 15 crew members have started to abandon their ship. But as you can see, hardly any passengers are seen on the deck of the ferry, raising criticism that crew didn't properly instruct them to leave the ship.
Right, I mean, still more questions and answers at this point, unfortunately. What about the criminal investigations that are ongoing at this moment? What do we know so far?
Yes, there are a number of investigations underway, and one is looking into the link between Kim Han-sik, the president of the Chonghaejin Marine Company, and Yoo Byung-won, the practical owner of the ferry company. Kim was summoned for questioning Tuesday morning for the first time since the ferry disaster. Now, prosecutors are looking into whether he was involved in any business irregularities, such as embezzlement, dereliction of duty, and tax evasion in connection with Yoo. The possibility that Kim managed slush funds for Yoo Byung-won is also being investigated. Now, investigators have been taking a long look at Yoo and raided 4 offices in Seoul, Daegu, and in Gyeonggi-do province on Monday, looking for evidence of paper companies. They're also looking at the ferry's first mate, known only by his family name, Kang. While the ferry was listing, Kang was reporting the situation to his employer, Chonghaejin Marine Company, instead of working to save the ill-fated ferry or its passengers. And he was also responsible for managing the amount of ballast water on the vessel, which is believed to have been one of the factors that caused the ferry to sink. And now that's all for me for now, and we'll have more updates throughout the afternoon and evening.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Moon Gon-young live from Seoul.
Global shopping market for the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. Now, we are just getting reports that North Korea has begun its live fire drills in the West Sea. Well, it had told South Korea earlier on that it will be conducting live fire drills near the de facto maritime border between the two Koreas. And the regime sent a notice to South Korea through the truce village of Panmunjom this morning. Now, in response, the South Korean military has ordered fishing vessels to leave the area in the West Sea and notified residents of nearby border islands to be prepared. The South Korean military says if any shells from the firing drills fall south of the northern limit line, it will respond with force. North Korea conducted a similar drill last month, which resulted in the two Koreas exchanging fire across the maritime border after more than 100 rounds from North Korea landed south of the border. North Korea is talking up its nuclear and missiles programs amid a speculation a fourth nuclear test could be on the cards. The North National Defense Commission said the regime has the capacity to carry out something bigger than a boosted fission nuclear weapons test or new intercontinental ballistic missile launch. Well, the statement did not provide further details, but Pyongyang took a swipe at the international community, saying its nuclear weapons program does not require approval from anyone. It also said the regime would not dismantle the program under any circumstances. The statement was in response to U.S. President Barack Obama's comments last week during his visit to Seoul, in which he said Washington would never allow North Korea to have nuclear weapons. Now, speaking of which, U.S. President Barack Obama has bid farewell to Asia, wrapping up his whirlwind tour of Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Now, one place conspicuously left off his itinerary was China. The president wanted to reaffirm America's commitment to defend its Asian allies and counter China's rise in the region. Our Connie Lee tells us whether it was mission accomplished.
It's a wrap for U.S. President Barack Obama. His time in the Philippines on Monday marked the last leg of his week-long Asia tour. And here, the U.S. reached a 10-year defense deal to allow more U.S. troops in the Philippines. The signing of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement and President Obama's entire Asia trip was seen as an effort by the U.S. to counter Chinese aggression in the region. However, at a press conference in Manila, President Obama said the U.S. wasn't trying to counter China, but only wants to make sure that territorial disputes are handled peacefully.
We don't even take a specific position on the disputes between nations. But as a matter of international law and international norms, we don't think that coercion and intimidation is the way to manage these disputes.
The Philippines, as well as Japan and South Korea, have ongoing territorial disputes with China. President Obama, who visited Japan, South Korea, and Malaysia this past week, did not swing by China. At each stop along the way, the U.S. president reaffirmed America's commitments to defend its Asian allies in the face of China's rising power. For South Korea, this means diplomatic commitments from the U.S. against the threat from North Korea. During his tour, the president also tried to press Japan and Malaysia on joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, but will go home to Washington without any firm commitments. The 12-nation trade deal that extends from Asia to Latin America does not include China. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
A new package of sanctions has been implemented on dozens of key persons in Russia, but whether they will have a big impact on the situation in Ukraine, well, that remains to be seen. The sanctions weren't as deep as some in Russia had braced for, but still, they targeted some individuals nearest and dearest to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The White House said it expanded asset freezes and visa bans to 7 Russian government officials, as well as 17 companies linked to Putin's inner circle. While U.S. President Barack Obama called the sanctions targeted, while Russia's Deputy Minister for Foreign Relations called them meaningless, shameful, and disgusting. The European Union also banned 15 more Russian officials from entering its 28-nation bloc and froze their assets. The Russian economy is already showing signs of tear from the crisis as the credit agency Standard & Poor's cut the country's credit rating to BBB- for the first time in 5 years on Friday. The Kaesong Industrial Complex is one of the last remaining links of cooperation between the two Koreas. Now, with an eye on boosting inter-Korean collaboration, South Korean businessmen with operations overseas plan to visit the industrial park in the coming days. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The World Federation of Overseas Korea Traders Association is looking to resume economic exchanges with North Korea. The chairman of World OCTA, Kim Woo-jae, along with 21 association members from 9 countries, are scheduled to visit the Kaesong Industrial Complex in the north on May 2nd to discuss future investments and plans to establish factories there. Kim said the trip is designed to contribute to reunification of the two Koreas by promoting economic cooperation and hopefully revitalizing inter-Korean exchanges. A total of 41 people are expected to make the trip, including the chairman of the Overseas Koreas Foundation, Cho Gi-hyung, and 13 CEOs. World OCTA said Tuesday that it first initiated the plan back in February and recently got approved from the two Koreas, adding that it had given business proposals in advance to the north. World OCTA is the largest overseas Korean business organization, and several firms are currently in business relationships with the north. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And on to the South Korean economy. Korea has entered its third year of logging a current account surplus every single month. Central bank officials attribute last month's surplus to firm auto and computer chip exports. ARIRANG News Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Korea's central bank said Tuesday that the nation posted a current account surplus of over $7.3 billion last month. That's up nearly $3 billion from February and marks the 25th straight month of surplus. Exports of goods rose almost 6% from the previous year to around $54 billion, helped by strong shipments in automobiles, semiconductors, and telecommunication products. Imports went up slightly more than 3% to $46 billion. The deficit in the service account, which includes tourism and shipping, also fell, posting a shortfall of $650 million last month, compared with a deficit of around $1.5 billion in February. The nation's current account surplus has been working as a buffer for any potential capital outflow from Korea that might be triggered by the U.S. Federal Reserve's scaling back of its massive bond-buying stimulus program. While the Bank of Korea forecasts the surplus for 2014 to reach $68 billion, earlier this month, the number for the first quarter stood at over $15 billion. The central bank says the recent current account surplus trend is on track to meet its projection. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Well, Chinese tourists are expected to come pouring into Korea this week as their annual Labor Day holiday season begins on Thursday. The nation's retailers have devised their marketing strategies to attract the big spenders to their stores. Here's our Yudian with more.
China's 3-day Labor Day holiday season begins this Thursday, and shopping malls in Korea are vamping up their marketing strategies to entice more Chinese tourists in. Malls are preparing various events, including generous giveaways and big discounts for such products as locally designed clothes and cosmetics popular with Chinese consumers. One of Korea's biggest retailers, Lotte Mall, will open a Korean Wave pop-up store especially for the holiday that will sell products related to popular Korean dramas. These efforts should come as no surprise as Chinese tourists have surpassed Japanese tourists, both in terms of their numbers and the amount they spend in Korea. Japanese tourists traditionally top the list when it comes to foreigners visiting Korea, but the number contracted recently due to the weak yen and strong Korean won, while Chinese tourists have been coming here in their droves. More than 1 million Chinese tourists came to Korea in the first 3 months of the year, up nearly 45% from the same period last year. Korea's top department store chain Shinsegae saw its sales to Chinese consumers spike a whopping 107% in the first quarter of this year, while the country's biggest duty-free shop, Lotte Duty Free, recorded an all-time high of over $850 million in its sales to Chinese visitors. That's up 15% from a year earlier. Yurian, ARIRANG News.
And now it's time for our daily arts and culture segment with our Im Yoon-hee, and she joins us live in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon.
Now, as we all know, not everything that we see or as it seems is what it is. And I think for art, that's also the case sometimes. And you've got a couple of items that fit that description today.
Exactly. So as you know, with art, there are virtually no boundaries. And so some artists even go as far as appearing to defy the laws of physics. And so today I have a few artists who are really making you look twice at their work. Let's take a look.
Is it a painting or is it a picture? These works may look like they're hand-painted carefully by an artist, but in fact, they're snapshots from a photographer who uses his camera to create his brushstrokes. The frames capture the side of a desolate building or an empty street, all of which look like paintings, but are actually captured by the camera. Photographer Kim Woo-young was living in the suburbs of California when he was first exposed to the scenes he used for this project. He doesn't want money or fame, he just wants to maintain the purity of his works.
Nature can be found on this road, and this road plays a very important role in my life. Even though there's eternity, there's also a connection, and there's meaning behind my works.
It's a strange combination of machine and light. Titled Falling Light, this piece, created by the London-based trio known as Troika, creates a sense that you're walking through ripples of water on the ground. Electrophobe is another piece that melds science and art, something this group is well known for. Featured around the world, these artists create works that make the viewer question reality. Whether it be colorful strings flying through the sky or hanging from the ceiling, these artists marry unlikely categories into harmonious and beautiful modern works of art.
Is there a place for a synthesis, like finding a more holistic way between things that are normally opposed, like technology and nature, or science and art, or science and religion? So we're trying to find like a way where there's a very happy collaboration.
These artists make us think twice about living in a society based on what's rational and what's logical. Instead, we're given an opportunity to look at the material world through the eyes of an artist.
You know, Yoon-hee, installation art certainly makes use of anything really available for them, and this art group, I think they seem to be making a very good advantage of that.
Right, they are big fans of this installation art. But so the group we just saw, Troika, this trio based out of London, they really make it a point as artists to connect what you or I would see as polar opposites. So for instance, science and art, or human emotion and efficiency, even technology and philosophy. So they really want to push the viewer out of their comfort zone per se, to really take a different view on the world. And you know, it's these combinations that make their artwork so intriguing.
Now, artists, most often than not, they try to convey a message, or they have a goal in creating an art piece or whatnot, and sometimes to bring awareness. Now, what about these artists?
So these artists really want to expand the way we think about the world, the way we visualize it. And so, you know, with the advancement of technology, you know, we're really encouraged to sort of look at things in a more technical view, in a more rational manner. But these artists, with their work, with their sculptures, their paintings, they really want to make us kind of look at things, look twice at them, and kind of think of other possibilities as explanations for what we're looking at.
Well, I suppose really pose and poke at our creative side.
Exactly.
All right, Yoon-hee, thank you for that report, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Well, the weather is giving search divers at the Sewol accident sites more problems now. Although the rain has stopped, it's very windy and foggy with poor visibility. Now, the tides are also making things very hard as strong spring tide periods come in and have moved in, and they will last until Friday. Now, for the rest of the nation, it is being influenced by the low pressure front from the west, which has brought with it a nationwide rain, although that will clear up more into the day. And the temperatures have also dropped quite a bit with highs in the upper teens. Now, the rain will clear up starting in the west and then moving towards the southern regions. And the rain is mostly focused over the Gyeongsang-Bukdo province, where up to 70 millimeters are forecasted until tomorrow. Now, going over to our readings, Seoul tops out at 18 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 17 and 18 degrees. Now, moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out at 17 degrees, Dokdo at 13, while Mankumgang tops out at 8. Well, that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Ganyang.
Thank you, Michelle, for that, and thank you for watching. I'm Moon Ganyang in Seoul. Let's check back with ARIRANG at 4 p.m. Korea time for Business Today.